Right, so last night we finally got to see the card that we had all been waiting for. The Day of Reckoning, brought to us from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And let's be honest, it didn't disappoint, did it? We saw upset wins, we saw knockouts, we saw career best performances. And in this video, I am going to quickly break down and review the entire card for you. Right, so we'll start off with Frank Sanchez. He stopped Junior Farr in the 7th round. Frank Sanchez looked good in this one, man. And I think he's going to be a really interesting name and addition to this heavyweight division. I hope the Saudis get him back on soon, because if you look at his resume so far, I get he fought F.A. Ajagba, but apart from Junior Farr, F.A. Ajagba, he hasn't fought at any sort of real good level, and I think that you can see him in with a lot of these fringe world level guys sooner rather than later. The good thing about these Saudi cards now is it's going to be more in a UFC mode, I think, and you're going to see these guys squaring off against each other rather than trying to build their records. And Frank Sanchez looks like a dangerous, explosive fighter. 31 years old, so he's sort of coming into his prime as a heavyweight now. I'm really interested to see who we see him in with next. Filip Hrgovic, he gets rid of Mark Deore in one single round. And if Filip Hrgovic was looking for a gimme, easy fight while he sits out and waits this potential IBF world title shot, you couldn't have really got a better opponent than Mark Deore, because Mark Deore is massively limited. But I will give him his credit. He did come out and give it a go. I remember him trying to counter right hand in the first, a left hook, and I think he even hit Filip Hrgovic with a right hand to the body. But as soon as Hrgovic started to unload on Mark Deore, he didn't even know where he was. And Hrgovic, right, he has got a vibe about him. When he's on his best form, he gives me a bit of a shades of Vitaly Klitschko at times. Now, I'm not saying he's as good as him, but I'm just saying he's a dangerous, scary fighter when he wants to be, you know. Filip Hrgovic, we've never really seen him hurt or down in the pro ranks. He's obviously never been stopped in the pro ranks. But even with an illustrious amateur career where he had a lot of fights, yet he lost fights, but he's never been down. He's never been stopped. So Filip Hrgovic, a real danger man in this heavyweight division. Now we look ahead to a potential fight against him and Anthony Joshua. And honestly, as good as Joshua looked last night, I don't know who you make as a favourite in that one. So really interested to see where Filip Hrgovic goes from here. Jay Opetaia, he stopped Ellis Zorro in a single round. And Jay Opetaia is a fighter that I'm hugely impressed by. He's the man at cruiserweight right now. And for a big man, he's massively creative. He sets up his opportunities well, sets up his shots well, versatile as anything, can box on the front foot, the back foot, southpaw, orthodox. And last night, he made easy work of Ellis Zorro. Ellis Zorro was always going to be a massive underdog coming into this one, but Jay Opetaia did not give him any respect and knocked him out with a southpaw backhand / hook type thing. It's a good shot, put Ellis Zorro away, and we're looking forward to seeing what Jay Opetaia does next. Now, the word is that he wants Chris Billam-Smith, and as much as I'd like to back the Brit, I think you'd have to make Jay Opetaia a big favourite in that one. Eddie Hearn, his promoter, was even saying that Jay Opetaia could go to heavyweight, and when you look at the heavyweight mix and you look how well Alexander Usyk's done coming up, that's another scary prospect. So really excited to see what he goes on to do next time out. And while we're talking about the non-heavyweight fights, let's quickly touch on Dimitri Bivol against Lyndon Arthur. Now, Lyndon Arthur, he's a good fighter. He's a good fighter, slick, good footwork, you know, good lead hand, and at British level, and even, you know, against Anthony Yard in that fight, that will get you over the line. But against Dimitri Bivol, that's just not going to be enough. And Dimitri Bivol, albeit having moments where Lyndon Arthur had success, Dimitri Bivol used Lyndon Arthur as a punch bag in this fight. He pretty much beat him up for the whole fight. He dropped him towards the end, and Lyndon Arthur done well to stay on his feet until the final bell after being dropped, and obviously, you know, lose on points in that fight. And I think we can see Lyndon Arthur in good domestic fights, maybe even European level, but Dimitri Bivol's a class above. However, being a class above is all well and good, but I think as, you know, from a fan perspective, and I'd say, do you know what, definitely like the casual boxing fans aren't going to be all that excited about Dimitri Bivol at times, because he does flatter to deceive a lot of the time. When he's in big, scary, challenging fights like Canelo and Ramirez, then you see him turn it on and he looks good. But when he fights the likes of Lyndon Arthur, when he fights, you know, Craig Spider Richards, he doesn't always look that good, you know. And as a light heavyweight, you do want to see these guys getting people out of there. And when you look at his knockout ratio of, what, 50%, I don't know, you'd like to see a little bit more from him. I'd love to see him in against Callum Smith, you know. I would make Bivol a favourite in that, but that would be an interesting fight. So I do think if Dimitri Bivol's going to continue to grow his name and eventually become a standout pay-per-view star on his own, he's going to need to get more knockouts to his record. Right, agic Cabel against Magomedov. Now, this is the first one from the preview videos that I'm quite happy I was able to call. I did say that this jumped out at me as an upset, and the bookies had agic Cabel as a 7-1 underdog. And when you look at Magomedov and what he's done in the game so far, I don't really know why they had him as such an underdog. I did believe that agic Cabel's boxing ability could see him through to a points victory. Okay, that's what I said in the preview video. What I didn't think is agic Cabel would take Magomedov apart and stop him in 4 rounds. But agic Cabel, although being hit with a few good shots early on by Magomedov, pretty much had that light bulb moment. The penny dropped. As soon as he hit Magomedov with a good shot, he realised, you might look like the scariest man in the room, but you're not the toughest, you know. And he knew that he had the power to hurt Magomedov. And sometimes when you're a big man like Magomedov and you're used to just punching people and getting them out of there, you don't actually have the acquired skill set where your position at that moment in time might need you to be. So you can blast through the rankings and you can stop guys coming up, but you don't gain the experience, the ring IQ, the know-how, the ability to weather the storm. And actually, when Magomedov had to weather the storm, he couldn't. And agic Cabel's a good boxer. Agic Cabel puts his hands together well. He doesn't headhunt. He was going to the body, and I think it was eventually a body shot that sort of sunk Magomedov to the canvas. He wasn't able to continue, so very excited now to see where agic Cabel goes. I think we've got to give a real credit. I think it's pretty performance of the night, maybe, from Cabel, because I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. Look, I said that it could jump out at me as an upset on the card, and I sort of backed Cabel. I actually had a bet on him at 7-1 also, which I won, which was good. But I wasn't supremely confident in it by any means, because at heavyweight, you know, sometimes skills can only get you so far, but the guys that can punch, and we knew Magomedov could. But agic Cabel, he throws himself into the mix now. He's got to be a bit more active in the bigger fights. I said he was inactive, and actually he's not been that inactive, but in the bigger fights, he needs to be. There's guys on the card here, potentially like a Frank Sanchez, who we'd love to see him in with now. So let's see next time the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia bring us a big card. If Cabel's on there, I'd love him to be. Let's move on to the fight that I was potentially most excited about of the night, and that is Daniel Dubar against Big Baby Miller. Now, Daniel Dubar won the heart over of a lot of the boxing public in the build-up because, listen, we know Daniel Dubar's not the sharpest tool in the box, but he's trying to give it a good go. The trash talking's good. I loved that he thought that Saudi Arabia was in Africa. That was a good touch for him there. And ironically, as I say, he's won over a lot of the heart of boxing fans. And Hart was saying he showed him there last night because people threw the sort of quitting accusation at Daniel Dubar against Usyk and definitely against Joe Joyce. And as I said in my preview video, I tell you what, when you have a broken orbital bone, I think most people would quit. I know I probably definitely would. So I don't think that Daniel Dubar is a quitter, but the heart of Daniel Dubar was always going to be tested last night, and tested it was because Big Baby Miller came at Daniel Dubar from the first round. Now, he wasn't throwing that many punches, but his tactic was obviously to drain Daniel Dubar. When we got to around the 4th round, I think Big Baby Miller landed like a right uppercut left hook. Daniel Dubar, I think, slipped or rolled the 3rd punch, but I thought, writing could be on the wall here, because Dubar got himself off to a really good start. He was hitting head and body well, he was using his feet, but what I didn't like around that 3rd, 4th round was when Jarrell Miller was coming in tight with the guard, Dubar was pushing him off. Now, you can either do 2 things. You can push the man off, or you can use your feet to get away, and it's sort of pick your poison, because either way, you're going to be drained from using your feet or pushing him off. But when you're in there with a big man, you're not going to have no success in pushing him off. You're just going to tire yourself, and when you're a muscly fighter like a Dubar, like an AJ, you need all that energy and all that fitness you can get, and by pushing with Big Baby Miller, there's only going to be one winner. So I didn't like seeing that from Daniel Dubar, and I was worried for him, but he caught his 2nd wind. And what you got to remember is he obviously had Derek Chisora's old trainer in his corner. Is he still training Derek Chisora, Don Charles? I'm not sure. But Don Charles was in his corner. He had Derek Chisora's old trainer. And the way that Big Baby Miller sort of shells in when he comes up, weaving and bobbing, is a bit like Derek Chisora. I'm not comparing them as fighters, but just his defense on the front foot is similar. So he didn't have a better trainer to prepare him for someone that defends like that. And obviously Daniel Dubois was able to catch him at will, really. He got his 2nd wind in the 2nd half of the fight. And it looked by about the 7th round, Jarrell Miller had pretty much just given up hope in there, was just walking down, hoping to land something. Daniel Dubar, really, really good. Ended up stopping Jarrell Miller in the 10th round, and the world's his oyster for Daniel Dubar now. Really looking forward to seeing what he can go on to do. I'm very excited to see what Daniel Dubar can do now. So let's see, because there's guys that won on the card like Cabel, like Frank Sanchez, that you'd love to see Daniel Dubar in. Even a Joe Joyce rematch, you know. Andy Ruiz was in the crowd. Will we put him in at that level? I'm not sure. I think the likes of Andy Ruiz and a Zhile Zhang I might just avoid, because Daniel Dubar is 26 years old. He's a baby in heavyweight terms, and although he's fought a couple of big names already, there's really no need to rush him, man. You know, a lot of heavyweights might pick up their world title at 28, 29 and have a good run with it. So I'm not even writing Daniel Dubar off as a possibility, but what I do think stylistically we're going to see him in good fights. So very happy for Daniel Dubar in that one. And as for Big Baby Miller, look, I said it before the fight, didn't I? Against Bracamonte, the guy that fought Dave Allen, Daniel Dubar, sorry, Big Baby Miller didn't look great in that one. Obviously against Lucas Brown, a really good fight, but the gas tank didn't look like it was there. And since coming off the substances, I don't think Big Baby Miller's got the same ability, the same gas tank, the same sort of longevity in fights that he did have before. And that was something he relied on heavily. So he's got a good chin. He's still got fast hands and he can still wear men down. And I could still imagine that he could pull off some wins in certain fights with fringe world level guys. But I don't know, 35 years old. Let's see if he comes back. He can sell a fight well and the Saudis seem to like him. He actually had the crowd on his side a lot of the time. So I think they'll have him back. Maybe we'll see him again, but not too excited for his aspirations of reaching the top level. The big upset on the night came for Deontay Wilder as he lost on points to Joseph Parker. Now, Joseph Parker grew into the fight. It wasn't a great fight. It was not a good watch on the eye by any means. Deontay Wilder, a lot of people were saying he had improved his footwork. I don't know whether you'd say he'd improved it. It looked a little bit more fluent, but is it any use being more fluent if you can't use it to do anything? And he didn't really do anything. And even in the fights, like, let's say, for example, the Gerald Washington fight or the Luis Ortiz rematch, right? When Deontay Wilder did hardly anything until he got the stoppages, you'd still see him commit with that 1-2 every now and again, or that big right hand every now and again. And against Joseph Parker, he just didn't really seem to. His timing was off. He looked gun shy in there, and Joseph Parker, under the really, really well-schooled tutelage of Andy Lee, grew into that fight. And after about the second round, he realised that he could get into Deontay Wilder, rough him up a little bit on the inside. He still had to be careful. Wilder landed a few shots, a right uppercut a couple of times I saw fly in, and he's always dangerous. And you always believed that actually he could do something here, but he left it too late. Even when he did start throwing punches, I'd still say Joseph Parker was getting the better of it. And you've got to give credit to Joseph Parker, man. Like, who would have seen that one coming? I knew that Joseph Parker had fought 4 times, including this fight, in a year. And that activity was always going to bode well for him. And Deontay Wilder's fact that, you know, he had fought, 1 round, 50 seconds of a round in God knows how long, 3 years or something, weren't going to bode well for him. But he's just got that equaliser. He is the most powerful puncher we've seen of the last decade or so. 10 world title defences, and it was pretty much all done on his punching ability. So I just really fancied Deontay Wilder to be able to get something done in this fight. I actually thought in the third fight against Tyson Fury, his boxing ability looked a little bit better. But against Joseph Parker, he failed to turn up. And do you know what? That sounds like I'm discrediting Joseph Parker, and I'm really not. But Parker weren't at his best either, you know. That same Parker that went in Wilder last night would have lost to a lot of top heavyweights. But then Wilder would have lost to a lot of top heavyweights last night. So, I don't know. Watching Joseph Parker's post-fight interview, he said he wants a world title. He's in for the big fights, and I think he could get there. Although the world title shots will be tied up at the moment. You know, we got the unification fight, the undisputed fight, and after that, the only one that's likely to get relinquished straight away is the IBF, or stripped straight away is the IBF, and Joseph Parker's not high enough up, although I think he is high in the IBF rankings, but it will be Anthony Joshua against Filip Hrgovic for that one, so I don't know who Joseph Parker fights now. As a fan, I'd love to see him in with maybe even a Daniel Dubar, someone like that. An Andy Ruiz rematch, that could be on the cards. Even a Deontay Wilder rematch may well happen, but listening to Deontay Wilder after the fight, I don't think he boxes again. I don't think Deontay Wilder boxes again, you know. He got into boxing to help his young daughter, who obviously has a medical condition. I think she has spina bifida, and he wanted to pay the medical bills, and that was one of his main motivations for getting into boxing, and really commendable, and obviously big up Deontay Wilder for that one. But now he's made his money. Now he's a lot more settled in his life, which he did sort of make reference to in his post-fight interview, and maybe the fire's gone from him, you know. And I do genuinely think that that could be the last time that we see Deontay Wilder. He's obviously got other business ventures outside of boxing. Again, he mentioned, he's been smart with his money. He's getting into making rap music or something like that. So I just don't know we'll see Deontay Wilder back in there again. If we don't, listen, hands up, massive applause for Deontay Wilder. He's had a great career. Deontay Wilder is a fighter that never said he was the best boxer out there. He didn't say he was, a slick-footed, classy boxer. He was a big, nasty, mean power puncher with vicious intentions. And for the most part, that's what we saw from him. So, he played the role that he played. And I think Deontay Wilder had a really, really good career. Joseph Parker, listen, let's see what happens with him. But let's move on to the main event. Anthony Joshua against old amateur rival, former sparring partner Otto Wallin. If the build-up taught us anything, right, is don't believe what you see when it comes to confidence in press conferences and whatnot, because Otto Wallin spoke a good game, man. He looked like he was confident, as did Jarrell Miller, and both got beat. And Otto Wallin, I'm not going to say he didn't have ambition in there, because he hit Anthony Joshua with a few jabs and whatnot, but we saw shades of the old AJ last night, man. I've got to give Ben Davison credit because he just seems to get the best out of fighters time in, time out, whoever he works with. And last night, he got the best out of Anthony Joshua. And you're Anthony Joshua, right? Don't even think about going back to Derek James, man. That old training with an American coach or training overseas, it just don't work for you, mate. You was always at your best with Ben Davison, Robert McCracken, even early on Tony Sims. I just think that Anthony Joshua should stay put now where he is, because I think Ben Davison would definitely get the best out of him. We saw him start off lively, a lot more lively than we've seen him since probably before the Usyk fight. He was letting punches go. He was actually punching the chest well like he used to do. And notice I say chest and not body. One thing Anthony Joshua always used to do is hit the chest well. It used to nullify opponents, stabilize opponents, then he'd come over the top of that big left hook. The left hook was pretty much what we saw him close the show with last night. He didn't have Wallin off of his feet, but I'm pretty sure he broke Wallin's nose with that left hook, It was a right hand left hook, and when we saw the replay, it wasn't that clear, but Wallin was in a bad way, man. Joshua was about to stop him in that next round. Joshua showed bad intentions. He didn't take a backward step. He took the center of the ring, and let's be honest, he beat Wallin up. And I was one of the ones in the build-up saying that Wallin was a lot more dangerous than people thought. And one of the main things I was basing it on was my perceived mental fragilities that Joshua had. But last night, he didn't show that. He's in a good place. He's got a good team behind him. And right now, okay, I wouldn't make him a favourite at all against Alexander Usyk. I think he'd get the same thing. But I tell you what, he's got a lot more of a chance against Tyson Fury than he did have now. Still make Fury a favourite, but he's got a lot more of a chance. And I tell you what, against the likes of Joe Joyce, Dylan White, any of those guys, I think he'd smash him, Herovic, that's a fight I am so looking forward to now. And now, people after the fight were saying, could you still fight Wilder? And he was saying, it could still happen. Listen, Wilder might have the name, but Joshua against Herovic is a serious fight. I am absolutely buzzing for that one. Both men probably now at their best. Both men obviously know each other well. I think they've been at amateur tournaments, albeit maybe not facing each other together. And that's going to be a monster fight when that rolls around. So very, very glad to see Anthony Joshua back. He put in a best performance we've seen from him in half a decade or something like that. And I'm buzzing to see it, man. I think he'll go on and do really, really well from here. Could he pick up a third world title? I wouldn't put it past him. I think him against Herovic is close to a 50-50, And some people might not agree with that. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. But let's finish it off with speaking about it in terms of the card we saw from Saudi Arabia. Listen, I'm so happy that the Saudis are in boxing, man, because say what you want about the human rights and things like that, but ultimately, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I don't care. I'm a boxing fan, and I don't really care about the background noise and what goes on elsewhere in the world. It's not my problem. I want to see the best fight the best. I want to see these cards that are almost in the mold of the UFC cards, where you're all under one banner. And let's be honest, we've never seen Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn work together. We would have never seen that until now. And now the Saudis have come in, we're starting to see that. So we should be licking our lips, rubbing our hands together and praying, thanking God, thanking the Saudis that we're seeing these sort of fights now. The undercard of Fury against Usyk is going to be another banger, we know that. And if the Saudis could put on this sort of cards every couple of months, I'd be absolutely buzzing, because this is what we need to see. This era of heavyweight boxing isn't at an end, but it's at the later stages now. And without the Saudis coming in, we may well have never seen these guys face off, So big up Turkey, His Excellency. I can't wait for the next one. People, do me a massive favour. Obviously, this channel's just launched. I'm overwhelmed by the feedback I've had already and the amount of people that have subscribed already. I think I hit 1,000 in my first 7 days, which is crazy. So please do me a massive favor. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the like button. I'm going to be banging out this sort of content all the time for you guys. Let me know in the comments what you want to see next. I'm going to do videos on what Anthony Joshua does next. Probably preview the Herovic match. A bit more technical and a bit more detail. Daniel Dubar, I'm going to do a video on him. Let me know what you guys want to see next. People, thank you very much for making it to the end of another video. Subscribe, like the video, share it. I'll see you all in the next one.